Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of DYNICS podcast from the plant floor up. This is Chris Gibbs, CRO of DYNICS. Purpose of today's meeting is to introduce one of our new team members, guy who comes to us with a significant experience, and we're going to introduce him to the team. We'll welcome Mike McCormack, our VP of DYNICS Defense Group. Welcome to DYNICS, Mike.
Thanks, Chris. Glad to be here. It's exciting times, to say the least.
It is exciting times. It is exciting times. I'm going to ask you a few questions so that our listeners can get an idea of who you are, where you came from, what attracted you to DYNICS, and where you see your role taking DYNICS in the future. So with that, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. Well, tell us about your background. Tell us about your DoD experience. And I know you were in the Air Force. You served our country, so thank you very much for that. Let us know how that helped you with what you're doing now, and how you got also into computer hardware solutions.
Well, I like to say that I was kind of born into the DoD. I was born on an Army base in Germany. My father was a 26-year Army guy, so I was an Army brat. I think you've got that kind of background as well, Chris.
I was born on an Army base in New Jersey. Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
There you go. So so I come from a long line of people who served in my family, both my brothers, myself. So when I was 18, I joined the Air Force and spent a good portion of that time flying as a comm systems engineer on EC-135s. And I think that kind of gave me a love of the technology marketplace, especially in communications and computers. And it's kind of carried through my entire career. So starting off as a systems engineer and then just kind of taking that into business, and then working with technology companies when I got out in the 90s and until today, really trying to provide the best solutions to our warfighters. So that's really, my background. And, being an engineer, I kind of look at it as now I just kind of engineer companies.
Gotcha. Understood. So when you got out, you first became a system engineer. So you were the smart guy in the room until you decided to go over to sales, and then you weren't quite as
went to the dark. Yeah, I went to the dark side, kind of is what a lot of people, my engineering friends, like to say. So I was a systems engineer, and then became really went into technical solutions to the DoD. So I was working overseas. I was also working in the States. Really providing solutions, and having that engineering background, it really gave me an insight, and being in that position in the Air Force gave me an insight in how to provide the right solutions to the multiple branches and to all the prime defense contractors as well.
Yeah, so I think our listeners who have a military background would know what the EC-135. I believe Eye in the Sky is how it was referred to, if I'm not mistaken, or do I have that wrong?
No, it's a little bit different. It was an airborne command post. It was part of what was called the post-attack command and control systems that existed during the Cold War. So it was our ability to keep our government going in a post-attack environment, post-nuclear environment.
Gotcha.
So the whole premise was, you had this big, you had this 135 full of comms gear, from VLF systems to super high frequency satellite communications that could communicate and basically maintain our national security system in a post-attack environment.
So in other words, you had everything needed to keep the government going on a single plane that was
exactly. And it was quite famous because we kept airborne alert for 29 years. A lot of people knew it as Looking Glass, but it was really keeping the government going in a post attack environment.
Understood. Which I think, and then obviously highly technical requirement just being on that plane. And then you've
Yeah,
taken
my
that and then grown
responsibility
it
was
to be
really
another.
nose to tail of everything from all the communications, computer systems, avionics, everything while that aircraft was airborne. And some of our missions, would last over 24 hours. So, with continuous aerial refueling. So it's pretty a complex job. And, we went to school for, 2 years in Keesler, Mississippi, learning the systems. And it took quite a number of years to become proficient in it. But I think the real thing is, we had some of the first, advanced computer systems on those aircraft going back into the 80s. And so I've seen a real revolution in computers and communications. And a lot of the communication systems we used back in those days are what's used in your mobile phone today. So seeing the evolution, of time division multiplexing, frequency shift keying, seeing all of this, and then seeing the computer technology go from the size of, a coffin into the same, processing capability as in your handheld phone today, is pretty amazing. So it's given me an insight into where, the Department of Defense is going, where our war fighters need in providing solutions that make us the most effective military in the world.
Yeah, yeah. Great segue to my next question, which is, how did you find DYNICS? What did you see in us? And where do you see us helping take the DoD and the warfighter space? How can DYNICS help?
Well, I think DYNICS has a unique proposition. So a lot of people out there who are providing what I'd say is the computing platforms, the human interface, and the OT cybersecurity, they're individual companies. So you have companies that are just doing those computers, companies that are just doing the displays or the panel PCs or the cybersecurity. DYNICS is totally vertically integrated, and so not just from not from a perspective of doing our own metalwork, doing our own painting, doing our own cable harnesses, developing our own systems in house, but it's being able to understand and provide that design and manufacturing in the US of everything from the embedded computer, the rack mounted computer, the displays, and the panel PCs, and then to be able to create that cybersecurity protection for the systems, whether it's separate or embedded into it, I think gives us a unique proposition to the warfighter. And I think being an American company and having a supply chain that is vertically integrated is what really attracted me to DYNICS. I've known DYNICS for a few years, but I think the reason I want to join is I think we have that unique proposition within the company that allows us to being I hate to use this one-stop shop, but becoming a total solutions provider to that defense prime, or directly to the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, or the Marine Corps. So I think it makes, we have a very unique proposition here that a lot of our competitors don't.
And the events of the last couple of days, I think, highlight a lot of the themes that you just said there: supply chain control, built in
Definitely.
America for Americans. The threat is coming. The threat is there. I made a joke about in our monthly industry insights. I completely stole from Game of Thrones. Winter is coming, and said the threat is coming. The reality is the threat is here, and it's always coming.
Yeah.
And our job is to evolve and deter and protect. So that's great. Got another question for you, jumping back to you a little bit. Your role, your superpower. What are your strengths that you're going to rely on to help make you and us successful in our?
Well, if somebody said my superpower, I'm a good fixer. So going back to my days of being a systems engineer and trying to maintain an aircraft while it's airborne, but also taking that same sort of mentality in providing fixes or solutions to our customers. I think my insight into, first of all, understanding how the warfighter works and looking at size, weight, power, supply chain, all the challenges that our DoD has from a perspective of, first of all, let's get away from any kind of sources of China supply. Looking at the threat in the Indo-PACOM theater, of what's going to affect our supply chain. And being able to be vertically integrated allows us at DYNICS really to be able to mitigate any circumstances that come up. So I really look at us providing solutions, us having a supply chain that is really U.S. based, that provides us the ability to really provide solutions that are American made and designed and serviced for the warfighter.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Your mentality has always been think about it nose to tail, everything in between, how to solve and fix and deliver.
Well, yeah, definitely, Chris. I mean, when you look at a lot of people sell something and it's a moment in time, and I think at DYNICS, what we're really about, what I was really impressed by is our responsiveness. Taking a look at a problem, we were working on a flyaway kit, and I remember bringing all the engineers together and being able to look at the solution in real time, having everybody discuss it, and then come up with a solution and be able to deliver it in such a short period of time. I think is not just I wouldn't say that's my superpower. I think that's DYNICS superpower. That's what we're good at, is coming up with solutions quickly and effectively, but then being able to provide the service over the lifetime of the product, so that the customer always knows that regardless of what happens, we're going to be there to take care of them.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's why DYNICS got started.
Yep.
We customized the industrial PC hardware to fit a certain form factor, and that's what we've built the company on. As a matter of fact, I've got an opportunity where they've asked us to change our equipment around for their demands in critical infrastructure substations.
Yep.
It's exact same scenario.
I always
All
like
right,
to call I like to call it modified off the shelf, taking existing solution, modifying it to the customer's need. The DoD talks about COTS all the time, commercial off the shelf. I like to say that we not only do COTS, but we do modified off the shelf as well, and that's what allows us to have that short lead time that the DoD needs.
That's exactly right. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just modifying the wheel to fit the need.
You
There's
bet.
many different wheels out there. All right. Well, anything else you want to leave us with? I think we've got a pretty good handle on who is Mike McCormack and what he's going to do for us, and what
No,
we're
I
going to
think
do
it's
for
a
our
pretty
customers.
exciting times. I think DYNICS is really a unique company in what it can provide as solutions, and my mission really is to expand that throughout the Department of Defense, supporting the warfighter and making sure that we provide world-class solutions to these individuals, to make sure that we're really an effective fighting force.
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Appreciate being here.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And the people listening will probably have an update in 6 months saying, "Hey, where are we? What have we done? What is it there?"
Glad to come back and tell them.
Yes, you will. All right. Well, that signs off this episode of From the Plant Floor Up, and we look forward to bringing you all something more in the coming months.